Kooper is very, down to earth. All of his attacks are grounded, which is really just a way of saying that he sucks against anything that's airborne. How much does he suck though? Well, let's find out. For starters, Kooper is the only partner entirely incapable of doing any attacks at all for the prologue. If you try to attack with Kooper before getting the lucky star, he will spin infinitely, and the only way to make him stop is to reset the game. So yes, both the Red and Blue Goomba and the Goomba King are impossible. So far, a pretty bad start. And I hate to say it, it doesn't get much better going forward. Because once we do get the lucky star, Koopa can't reach the Magic Koopa. This is not a recipe for success. So yeah, this challenge was over before it even started. There was zero chance that Koopa could beat the game by himself. But that's not what this video is about. How many bosses can he beat? To that I say, let's find out. At the very least, the Fuzzy's encounter isn't very difficult for him. 2 power shells are all it takes to win. Kooper is also capable of doing damage to Koopa Troopas that are on the ground as well as Bob-ombs. Unfortunately, he comes just shy of being able to clear the Koopa Bros fortress all by himself. Because when it comes to Paratroopas, he can't reach them. So close, and yet so far. Though he does handle the Bill Blasters pretty well. When there are no Bullet Bills, he'll just do Shell Toss to do 1 damage to the one in front. And when Bullet Bills do spawn, he'll Power Shell to knock them all out in one time. He was decently effective, and that much we have to give him credit for. Trojan Bowser and the Koopa Bros win okay. However, for this fight to be possible, I had to allow an exception here. By my rules, Mario is forbidden from attacking the entire fight. And for the first phase, this is fine. Kooper is able to attack and do 1 damage per turn, while Mario is able to guard and take 0 damage in retaliation. It's phase 2 where this exception has to exist. You see, there is 0 way for Kooper to knock the entire stack of Koopas down in 1 turn. Once they're hit once with an attack that does at least 1 damage, they'll be thrown off their balance, and 1 more attack against them, whether or not it does damage, will flip them all over. But Kooper can only attack once per turn, and after that turn ends, the Koopa Bros regain their balance. Ergo, Kooper cannot attack the Koopa Bros enough times in a single turn to flip them all over. Now here's where the exception comes into play. There exists a single Thunderbolt. Because of the way this fight is designed, I will allow Mario to use the Thunderbolt to knock the Koopa Bros down. That way, the few partners that can make it to the Koopa Bros at least have a fighting chance to beat them. Though to compensate, they're only getting partial credit. After the Thunderbolt though, 3 Power Shells is barely enough to do in the quartet. Victory is ours. As ever so hollowed up victory may feel. At least we have our fellow Koopa Junior Troopa to fight us. The gimmick here is he has defense, which would be really bad if we only could do 1 damage per hit. But Kooper does 2 damage in 1 hit because all of his damage is all at once. Provided our guards are consistent, we can win this fight just by constantly using Shell Toss here. One thing that has to be said, this is definitely not the worst start a partner could have. But the challenge is only uphill from here. Chapter 2 is where things start getting really bad for Kooper. For starters, because he can only target foes that are on the ground, Buzzar is impossible. Not the biggest loss because after all, Buzzar is an optional fight, but this does not bode well for Kooper's future, because if you cannot target anything that's airborne at all, that's potentially lots of bosses that you're completely shut out by, just from that fact alone. The tomb trapped in the Dry ruins is also impossible for Kooper. The Pokemummies are vulnerable to Shell Toss and Power Shell just fine, but not the swoops. They hang on the ceiling. And well, the ceiling is not the ground, so of course, Kooper can't reach them, he can't hurt them, he can't do anything here at all. Quite a pity, honestly. Though he is able to hurt the Stone Chomps. So at least, there are a few required fights that Kooper can handle by himself. Before we fight Tactic Koopa, however, I should mention that I did use the Super Block in the Oasis to rank up Kooper to Super Rank. Dizzy Shell is a fantastic move. Being able to stun enemies for a few turns and just be able to get free damage out on them is a very, very useful attribute to have. What holds it back though is the fact that A, it's 4 FP, which is quite a lot this early in the game, and B, you don't have Mario to capitalize on that status element. This unfortunately makes the move rather unviable for fighting Tactic-Koopa with. It wouldn't be so bad except for the fact that Tactic-Koopa sits atop a perch for most of the fight. So Kooper can only reach him when Trader Spell activates and knocks Tactic-Koopa down to the ground. If you were very, very lucky, you would have Trader Spell repeatedly activate to keep hitting Tactic-Koopa until his HP fell down to a value where you could finish him off with Power Shell. Technically, it's possible. But in reality, I'm sorry, but that is just way too much luck for me to put up with. It's not like your own badges allow you to have a fighting chance here. Your only way of winning this fight is for Testa Koopa to keep hurting himself, and you would need for it to repeatedly happen to be able to win. Meanwhile, stunlocking him and using Power Shell is not viable here either, because that's 7 FP per turn. As such, I'm only giving Kooper here partial credit, because technically it's possible, but it requires so much freaking RNG it's not worth it to do it all. And unfortunately, it doesn't get any better from here. Let's just throw this out there right now, Kooper cannot hurt bloopers at all. All for the simple fact that they're all airborne. Yeah, that is pretty bad, isn't it? But let's rub some salt in the wound. The next fight with Junior Troopa, guess what? Yeah, he's also flying. Once again, Kooper cannot reach him at all. Maybe Tubba heart is possible at least for him, right? Right? Wrong. All because that heart is perked on that little stump of stone. It doesn't matter how many life streams we have. If we can't do damage to the heart, we cannot win. As such, I'm not fighting the Tubba fight either, where his heart and his body reunite. If you can't beat the heart, you can't reach Tubba's body. So yeah, Kooper's getting absolutely zero credit. Chapter 4 meanwhile is more of the same. Big Lantern Ghost is actually rather insulting for this challenge. Because the room is dark, Kooper cannot see the Big Lantern Ghost, and as a result, he can't attack him directly. Interestingly enough though, he can target the lantern to brighten the room up. Honestly, I thought it'd be elevated, but I'm surprised to find out it isn't. Unfortunately, the instant that the lantern is hit twice, the Big Lantern Ghost will blow it out. As a matter of fact, I found that every time you attack the lantern twice, because Kooper can only attack it once per turn, at the time that Kooper can't see the Big Lantern Ghost, the Lantern Ghost will blow out the lantern, meaning doing any damage here is entirely impossible. That much is bad enough, but here's the kicker. Kooper cannot use any of his area of effect attacks, whether it's Dizzy Shell or Power Shell, when the room is too dark. Why is this the case? I have no freaking idea. You'd think that using Power Shell would mean you're also just attacking anything that's in the way, but no. How does Kooper even see in that shell? Why would it matter if he could see in that shell? Because the game says so. So yeah, Kooper got screwed. But my friends, when you click this video, you send yourself up for the circus that never ends. And guess what our next attraction is? Why, it's General Guy, of course. So the Shy Squad is already vulnerable to being hit by Shell Toss. They're not a problem here at all. Especially when Mario has Defend Plus equipped. But then we reach the Stilt guys, and you may have noticed that they're on their stilts, of course. After all, they have stilts in their name. And Kooper cannot reach them because they're considered elevated enemies. Just like that, it doesn't even matter that Kooper can hit the Shy Stack and General Guy himself. Under no circumstances can he even hurt the Stilt guys. Once again, a chapter where Kooper gets absolutely zero credit. Maybe when we return here to fight the anti-guy, you can get some kind of points here, but right now, it is not pretty. And sadly enough, it's the same case for Fuzzipede on the way to Chapter 5. Not only can you not hit the Fuzzipede while it's dark, you can't even encounter the Fuzzipede in the overworld while it's dark either. You need Watt out. Just what a tragedy this has been for Kooper so far in this run. And you already know it can only get worse from here on out. Who's that partner? Chapter 5 has a faint glimmer of hope for the kid. None of the required enemy encounters are really that bad for him. The ambushes are all grounded, so of course Power Shell does just fine here. And the same applies to future piranhas as well. In the fight deep within Jade Jungle, however, where there's a white Master Koopa, well, Kooper's especially gifted. But first, did you know that if you first strike this fight with Kooper, you're actually allowed to run away? I tried that on a whim and it just ended up working. But encountering this fight normally, you can't run away. Irrelevant, I know. Anyway, the fight. Concerning raw power, of course he would not be able to win. But he has this move called Dizzy Shell. Using it, the white Magic Koopa cannot even act. And Kooper at his own leisure is basically just able to dispatch every enemy after that point. Which then, thanks to Raphael the Raven's Ultra Stone, Kooper's able to rank up the Ultra rank. In doing so, he learns this move called Fire Shell, which is basically Power Shell but stronger. Of course though, it won't help him for Junior Troopa. Forget about the spike on his head, once again he's airborne, so yeah, what's he gonna do now? And as if that wasn't bad enough, we also have Lava Piranha. Do I even have to mention why Kooper cannot win this fight? Yeah, Chapter 5 has not been kind to Kooper at all. But there is always Chapter 6, right? Well, I don't know what to tell you. Seriously, Chapter 6 may as well be Kooper's special hell. There is literally only one required fight that he can beat, and it's a fight literally every partner can beat. Though to Kooper's credit, he's pretty good at it. Yet, the Monty-Moles in Petunia's room are the only required enemy fight that Kooper can take care of. And I mean it when I say only. He can attack the Spinies, but he can't reach the Lakitus in the maze. Which also means that the Lakitus that are guarding the Huff and Puff machine are also off limits. Who else is off limits? Lackluster. Once again, on a cloud. You cannot reach him. And the cherry atop this poopy sundae, Huff and Puff, is also airborne. Kooper, you suck! God, at this point, I don't expect this video to be very long. But life keeps going, right? I guess on a slightly more positive note, Anti-Guy is of course very possible for Kooper. But I don't want to give credit for this fight here, because there's an Anti-Guy unit in Chapter 8. There, you fight 3 Anti-Guys all at once. I think that'd be a lot more interesting, wouldn't you say? I think you'd do pretty well there. But this then brings us to the dojo. The only fight I'm really interested in though is Master 3. Everything before though is strictly easier, and they really don't matter for very much either. I mean, Lee can become airborne so that Kooper can't reach him, but before long, he always reverts back to being a duplicate ghost anyway. Now Master 3 hits like a freight train, especially when his double attack can KO Mario even after getting revived by a life shroom. However, in general, you're pretty much always going to be fine as long as you block at least one hit from that attack. And in return, as long as Kooper is always using Fire Shell, he'll usually have at least one life stream left over. Which is enough to say that, you know what Kooper, you may be pretty awful on your own in battle, but at the very least, you can graduate. Congratulations, and good luck with the rest of this run because it won't be pretty for you at all. Speaking of which, meet Kenshi Koopa. This guy is a brick house. While standing up, he has 6 defense. Yeah, 6 freaking defense. And Kooper's attack power with Fire Shell? 6. So you physically cannot do any damage to him at all with Kooper. It's funny. You know in the beginning of the game where Junior Troopa is called a bully? Well, I see the same thing about Kenshi Koopa right here. At least other enemies in fights with mini-bosses and bosses have the excuse of being unable to even be reached. But this guy? Kooper can reach him and just cannot hurt him because he's not strong enough. How does this desperado-looking wimp have no way of hurting Kenshi Koopa, but at the same time, you have someone that looks like this be able to do it just fine? Just think about that. Though then again, Koops does have a girlfriend, and probably an air fryer. Actually, I'm imagining that now, seeing Koop stand up to a bully looking like Kenshi Koopa for his girlfriend. And all the while, Kooper gets shoved into a locker because he's just so freaking incapable of anything. But instead of David and Goliath, we have Goliath and, I don't know, that plant with the megalomania power from Jimmy Neutron? Like, what do you honestly expect to happen? It's Koops! What do he and Kooper have in common? Chapter 7, where after the sussy penguin accuses us of murdering her husband, we brawl with Junior Troopa. It's here I learned that Junior Troopa's only attack here does 8 damage in 1 hit. I get that it's Chapter 7, but my god, that's a lot of damage. Still, we have Fire Shell, and it takes only 10 of those to KO him. And here I am saying only as if 10's a small number. That's not a small number at all, Aaron. What are you talking about? You know what is small, though? Kooper's score. And that score is going to stay pretty dang low because the next boss fight is against Monstar. And I'll admit, this thing is terrifying. In fact, I dare say Kooper's traumatized. No, not because this thing is dark blue and ominous and has all these sparkles all over his body. No, it's because this boss fight is airborne. Yet another fight that Kooper cannot do at all no matter how much he wanted to. And at this point, it's just pathetic. At least the Crystal Palace was not very bad for him. Both the Duplicate Ghosts as well as the required fights against the Magic Koopas and the White Clubbas were easy pickings. No enemies were airborne, and basically everything was weak to being hit by Disney Shell too. So that much is good. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the Crystal King. It is nice that Fire Shell does double damage over Shell Toss, but the fight becomes a massive game of chance after the 20 HP mark. Technically speaking, Kooper can win this fight, but he needs to get very lucky with Disney Shell on a consistent basis. The Crystal King himself isn't really that dangerous anyway. Honestly, thanks to damage dodges in Last Stand, Mario's at very little risk of taking any damage at all. No, the real hurdle here is getting unlucky and having to reset. It's technically possible, but that only gives you half credit in this challenge. Regardless, that's Chapter 7, and there really isn't much standing between us and Chapter 8 right now, so let's go ahead and try it. Safe to say, this game has not been very kind to Kooper. But there is a small ray of hope thanks to Disney Shell here, because the Koopa Trolls and Magic Koopa fight can actually be beaten pretty handily here. Really, the Magic Koopa can't do anything when it's dizzy, so just spam Disney Shell away, then Fire Shell to finish them off. But that much I expected. What I didn't expect though was that Kooper would be quite possibly the best partner in this entire series at handling the anti-guy unit. Disney Shell here works absolutely great. Like, for most of the fight, the anti-guys could not do anything at all to me. And thanks to all the FP I have and my flower savers, it was pretty dang cheap too. I think by the end of the fight, I used up, what, 2 live streams and that was it. That is incredible. You know, for how much crap I give Kooper, when he can perform, he does perform. Though, I would hate to rain on his parade. Oh, who am I kidding? I love doing it. As I'm recording this voiceover, note that I don't have a script right now, but I can already see that Junior Troopa 6 would not be going well for him at all. Because yeah, he starts off grounded, but after he takes enough damage, he starts flying in the air where Kooper cannot reach him anymore. And Disney Shell, though it does work, it only lasts for 1 turn when he's on the ground. Meaning that by Kooper's next attack, Junior Troopa won't be dizzy anymore, which ergo also means that status locking is impossible. Now, this is after all just a prediction, but let's just say I know a thing or two about this game. And as such, I'm confident I won't have to redo this voiceover and you'll hear this right now in the video. But now that I've said that, let's actually catch back up. We've got one more boss of note and it's Hallway Bowser. And my goodness was this fight problematic. At first, Bowser's stats are actually lower than Junior Troopa. Yeah, try to wrap your head around that. The full-grown Demon King of the Koopas has 50 HP and 1 defense, when a freaking toddler has 60 HP and 2 defense. But Bowser also has the Star Rod, and with it, he can increase his attack power by a ton. Like, some of his attacks do double damage. And he also gains 3 additional defense, giving him 4 defense total that cannot be pierced by any partner's attacks. Something tells me Watt wouldn't have a fun time here at all. Now, with all the badges that have to reduce the cost of FP moves like Fire Shell, it costs only 3 FP to use, which doesn't sound too bad. But compared to Sushi, Bombette, and Parakarry, no, it's pretty bad. I promise you'll see what I mean later. For Kooper though, before he boosts with the Star Shield, Kooper does 5 damage per turn with Fire Shield. After he boosts though, he does only 2 damage per turn. A lot worse for sure, but you have to also remember that our FP is limited. And once we run out of FP for Fire Shell, Kooper does only 1 damage per turn. Yeah, just 1 with his basic attack. And on one hand, it is nice that Kooper still has a chance to win even if he has no FP left. But at the speed that Bowser's doing damage to Mario, he does not have a lot of time to mess around. You have to be on your A game to really make your live streams last, as well as to make sure that Kooper can actually keep fighting. Because if even once Kooper gets hit by Bowser's Star Wave, you can pack your bags and jump out the freaking window. On my first attempt, I was this freaking close to winning. Just to miss 1 final Star Wave when I did not miss a single one before the entire fight. And Mario was completely dead in the water. Call Mario Nicholas Piantanita because this is where he spends his final moments, right up in the sky where it seems he belongs. I would try again, but not before grinding at the level of 27, the maximum level. I felt like with a little more extra HP and maybe some optimized badges, then yeah, Kooper could do it, but as is, I didn't really have the confidence. Having all of my defensive badges on also did not really matter for very much. Like, with or without having Defend Plus, Mario still gets 2-hit KO'd or even 1-hit KO'd by the same attacks that Bowser throws out at him. Meanwhile, equipping a couple of FP pluses does mean a lot more Fire Shells can be used. An additional 4 Fire Shells doesn't sound like very much, but note this. The difference between 1 damage and 2 damage is massive here. And true enough, the extra defense did not make much of a difference here after all. It still lasted a lot of turns, and truth be told, there was still some pretty bad luck in Kooper's end too. But all the same, Kooper was only barely able to come out on top, which is concerning considering the fact that if we had worse RNG, this could end very differently. But this time around, I think we'll throw Kooper a bone. Good job, my lad. You worked hard to get here. And you know Bowser, that old so-and-so, he's like, this ain't even over yet, but I say it is. He lost fair and square with his Star Rod to Kooper. And after all, literally no partner can beat Bowser on top of Peach's castle. By then, you need Mario and his Starbeam and then Peach Beam to win. So I'm good ending it here. So with that all said, how did Kooper do for this run? Assuming my math is correct, Kooper has only 12 points, out of a total 33 possible. That is humiliating. And I think you can guess now that Bo is no longer the worst partner in this series. Being confined to the ground is a massive handicap in a game like this, where so many enemies and boss fights are either elevated or even just straight up airborne. He really is the definition of a sidekick. It just makes you wonder, how would Kooper do if he could use items in battle? I think you'll find out when you click Koop's video in Paper Mario T2ID. I'll see you there. Next up on the chopping block is going to be Bombette. Congrats, by the way, to everyone that got the correct answer last video. And as always, try to guess who will come after her. As for your hint, consider this. Off of appearance alone, they would not be out of place if they were a Pokemon protagonist.